Most podcasts quit after a few episodes. Rob was talking to me about this today, and I was like, holy shit, I'm recording like episode 114. We're having a freaking snowstorm. It's like crazy in Canada right now. It's unbelievable outside. Mother Nature doesn't know what the fuck to do. There's a crazy snowstorm. It was like 17 yesterday. Like degrees Celsius, like plus degrees Celsius. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weather. Like almost like in the 70s, but just beautiful. Not today. I turned the clocks, I sprung forward and whatever. Spring has sprung all over the fucking place, and it's spring and it's sprung like snow. Like fucking crazy. Looks like I turned the clock forward to next Christmas. It's jarring to see. It's weird. It's really weird. And like people are like not knowing how to react to it. Some people are like, let's go tobogganing. Other people are like, fucking melt. Melt, you son of a bitch. Like, so I don't care either ways. I got enough food and family and fun I'm just fine where I am. So, it's funny. But like, podcasts quit after, a few episodes, like less than 5, 10 sometimes. 5, 10, 114. That's one thing to say. I just don't give up. Like I told Rob earlier, I'm never going to stop talking. There's only 2 hours a day where I don't talk, and we're going to get into that. Just to start, I promised and I hinted that I'd share with you the process, sometimes probably most annoying process for at least those around me and my family that I use to get ready for like creative process, which is like whether I have to do a podcast or I have to like write some music for something or record music or play a concert or play a show or do something like publicly. I always have the same like sort of method and the methodology behind it and the routine. It's the same. I'm giving a fucking speech about something, like anything, presenting an award. I do the same fucking thing every time. Like I say, it's probably fucking like ridiculous to my family because I'm quirky. It's weird, but it's my method. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like 5 a.m. or earlier if my body wakes me up then. But generally, I'm up by 5 a.m. not because of an alarm, just because I get up. That's what time I get up. So I have to get my meds in for like ADHD and all that stuff. So I'm like totally crazy in the morning. But I take a lot of like natural supplements too. And in between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., as you can see, I'm just totally almost over my asthma attack. Like I'm quiet. Like it's like almost the only time of the day where I don't fucking talk. Rob says it's a gift to all of us. He's fucking sleeping, so I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But in that 2 hours, what do? I'm crying. I'm meditating. Like crying like silently. It's good for you to let it out, man. Fucking crying's good for you. I'm reading. I'm prepping meals. I'm writing. I'm praising the dog. Like sometimes I'll like, I love you. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm quiet. Alexa is on whisper mode. I generally don't say a word for 2 hours, if you can fucking believe that, because I just need to be quiet in the fucking morning. Then, I get everyone up around 7:30 in the morning, and everyone has like a full breakfast. These are the days that I'm like recording or have to do something fucking crazy. Everyone has like a full breakfast, like bacon and eggs and toast, or sausage and eggs and toast and fruit and yogurt and all the shit, right? Like you're going to Shake Cora's or like fucking some pancake place, like IHOP or whatever, just without a lot of whipped cream and chocolate chips and shit. Just a little bit healthier, But that's like usually like the fam breakfast thing. We do that. And then this then starts a 2-hour process that includes a bubble bath and my hair and makeup, all of it like together. And then usually I'm like penning down like extra notes for my podcast at that time too. Because when I'm in the bath and I'm never near water, I'm an Aquarius. Things fucking come to me. They come to me. Oh, did they ever come to me like these cookies are gonna come to me? Oh my God, I love them. Like, I'm usually like pumping myself up with like music or tunes, or sometimes I'm in here and I'm playing something. Like I'm like jamming on guitar, or playing, slapping the bass, or playing piano or whatever. I'll be dicking around with pedals or just doing something. We got a steel drum not too long ago and some maracas. I'm really excited for those. Especially the steel drum. Let's play the limbo rock. I've been teaching the kids about steel drum. Now, they want to bring it to school. And their music teacher is cool as shit. So I think their music teacher would appreciate it. So maybe I'll send it to school. Let them dink around with it. She's probably got a mallet. I love school. I love my kids' school. I love how cool they are with music. So that's cool. But like I said, I put myself up with music because of school. School's what got me into music. I make last minute podcast notes, and if there's any last minute nuances and details, I add them on then. It's when. Then it's usually like burning more incense, having a snack, and meditating again. And then getting like a drink ready. Putting coffee or Kool-Aid. We have a snack ready. Then there's all like the technical shit that needs to happen. And getting my lav mic on and cameras on, lighting, all that bullshit, making sure everything fucking works. I gotta have a drink, my notes, something to fiddle with. Cookie. Looks like a cigar. Can't smoke cigars. Asthma, man. I don't want it to be COPD, so I'm being careful. Like I say, I gotta have a warm drink. Like I say, it's winter again in Canada, so I gotta have a warm drink. Mine says comfy clothes and murder shows, because that's kind of what I'm all about. You know me. And today, it's gonna be a lot of murdery stuff. Like, really murdery stuff. Like, trigger warning. Be careful. If you don't like scary shit, get the fuck off this ride now. Shout when you want to get off the ride. And if you want to get off the ride now, you better get off the ride now. Because we're going to talk about some serious shit. Usually I've got my phone with me, but like as a monitor and research tool, if I feel like I'm like, I have to cross-reference this with something else or whatever. I don't have my phone with me. It's a blood sugar monitor also, because I look after my child's blood sugar and everything like that, but like my partner also does. So it's like I don't really have to worry about it. It's not like I have a partner who's like, no, I don't give a fuck, you know, what our kid's blood sugar is. Like, you look after it because you're the mom. Not that kind of thing. Very split when it comes to like kids and stuff like that, and like especially kids when they have a disability or something like that. You know, it's difficult. So it takes a whole village. What can I say? And then also in the interterm, like, what am I doing? What do I do? I'm packing grooming company orders for Rockaholic because I'm doing that too. Like, because that's my like other job. I'm not making music or doing music or voiceovering something or doing the podcast. I'm doing the grooming company either in person or online, when posting stuff and running to the post office and all over the place. Thank God I got my driver's license back. Jeez Louise. Fuck Christ. All night long. All night long. Last night, because of yesterday's release, the grooming company fucking exploded, and people are really excited about the beard wash. Like, it comes in a 4-ounce container. It's like $10. It's cheap. It's beautiful. It's pink. It smells like a nice lightly scented bubble gum. I like it for bubble bath. People love it in the shower. If you have short hair, beard, all those things, it's really nice, scrubby, cleansing wash. Really antimicrobial and antibacterial. It's beautiful. And then put in your regular routine and just go for it. Seriously. There's been some self-hate the last couple weeks, but seriously, I love myself today. I'm not like yesterday. I'm cool. I'm calm. I'm gonna be okay. I love myself today. Not like yesterday. Take another look at me now, because I don't give a fuck at all. Because seriously, we have been getting to this episode for a while. We've been waiting for the cultiest countdowns that I could think of. And I had to like narrow it down like hardcore because I know a lot of cults. Because, well, as you know, let's start at the very beginning. Fraulein Maria, that's a very fine place to start. Like they said in the Sound of Music. But they never talked about cults, but they were nuns, so they're in their own fucking cult. We'll get to that later. Catholics. I'm looking at you, Catholics. My head. It's already spinning. We have not even started. I've not even dipped my toe in the cold water yet. But I will. Here we go. Seriously. So, welcome to the Cult Countdown on your favorite podcast and mine, because I'm biased, obviously. 21st Century Rockamont podcast with me, your host, Danny Keller. I'm always here with you. Where to actually start this episode really left me scratching my head. And not because there was a lice outbreak at school. I dodged that fucking bullet. Thank you, homemade oils. But it left me thinking about how I was going to ease into something so evil and so wicked and so insidious and so bad, like something that is so terrible, that it just really chills you to the bone and it infuriates you. It makes your blood boil. For most people, it does. So, in the beginning is this. I'm a cult survivor. I'm a survivor. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to work harder. No, seriously, I'm a cult survivor, for real. And some of you know this, but a lot of you don't know this, that I was involved in a cult, and I got sucked into a cult. I had a shitty time in my life, big surprise. And maybe you haven't heard all 113 episodes of the show. Maybe you haven't heard the culty ones. Maybe you haven't heard me talk about it. Maybe you're new around here. Maybe we've never had a conversation about it. But the point is, with cult survivors and with people, we don't want people to be involved in cults again. We got to talk about it, right? So we got to keep the conversation going. So that's why I decided to do this culty ass countdown. So, around late 2010-ish, early 2011, some stuff went down, and I was having a hard time in my life. It was down. And I got a memo on a board at the library about a presentation, and it was all about dreams and dream yoga. Always watch out for the word yoga. You're going to learn that later. Watch out for yoga, not regular yoga. Gateway drug yoga. Why do so many cults start with yoga? Anyways, I'll reveal the reason later on, but there is actually a targeted method. So it was about learning and interpreting what your dreams mean. So I was like, oh, this is fascinating. For me especially, I was like, neat. Because you know me, I'm a bit crunchy. I read tarot cards and do all that stuff. So myself and my best friend at the time, we went. We took our spouses at the time. I was separated from my spouse. I was in a very dark, drifty place. I was drinking a lot. When I say I'm sober, fucking when I drank before I had kids, and stuff like that, oh my God. I drank like a fish. It was disgusting. I posted a very drunken picture of myself the other day on my Instagram. I'm not proud of it, but it was literally to educate people because I have been, not anymore, but whoops, I lost my cookie. I have been a cautionary fucking tale for people and should be a cautionary tale for other people. And that's why I talk about this shit, because I don't want this stuff to happen, especially wait till you hear the next episode. You're gonna lose it. So anyways, I'll say I definitely did not like my life at the time, and I felt like there had to be something else. Something really was missing. There had to be something else. There had to be something more than this. And these folks, after one meeting, had my fucking ass recruited. I was signing up papers to go to classes, and I was just I'm ready to go. Let's go. And like, I did. And once a week, we'd have like, plus like other gatherings that were for members only, surprise, members only gatherings. And like sometimes you could bring your spouses, but like the person that I was with at the time would like fall asleep during meditation. They were so like lazy and they get stoned. So stoned that they just fall asleep. I'm like, that's cool, because the cult really frowned upon drugs that I was in. And I used to think it was a bit of a lark to go to the meeting stoned. Because in the beginning, they're all about dreams and dream yoga and what your dreams mean and, past lives and Atlantis, mediumship, tarot cards, kind of counterculture stuff that I was already really into, palmistry, those types of things. But then we started talking about spiritualism and, the ego, which I was already really heavily kind of into because I'd already been fascinated by Eastern religion because I was already into Buddhism by then, since I was 16. Probably 15 to 16 when I got into Buddhism and I moved away from anything churchy. Not that we were churchy, but in case anyone thought we were, I was like majorly a Buddhist and followed that regime from 16 to a long time. But anyways, like I say, they gathered and we talked about all kinds of like counterculture stuff. But we also talked about like death a lot. And then I noticed there was these pictures up on the wall. And it was like VM someone and VM like someone else. I'm like, fuck. What does VM mean? And it means venerable master and venerable mistress. So there was a portrait of a gentleman on the wall. And there was also a portrait of his wife. So the man who actually founded the cult that I was in, known as IGAS, the International Gnostic Association for Anthropological Studies. The International Gnostic Association for Anthropological Studies, IGAS, is what they called it. And it was founded by a man who had like a regular name, born one thing, but apparently his exalted name was Samael, Venerable Master, VM, Samael Anwar. He was up on the wall. And his wife, just a regular lady, but her name, they called her Litalantes. And she was up on the wall too. And they had pictures of them up like you would like Mary and Jesus, like in a church. Like in lots of religions, there's like a mother and father like of God. And there's a Mary and Joseph figure, or there's a father and a mother figure, and a son figure. All those kinds of things. Like it's a lot of religions mirror each other. Now, I can't say this is totally a religion because it wasn't. It's a cult. These are not these people's birth names. These are just regular people who like profess themselves to be mediums and be able to carry certain powers. And I remember feeling odd about him after one particular retreat that we went on. And it was after a retreat, and then the tide kind of turned. We started talking about sex a lot and transmutation of energy and not losing our energy to our lower energy and letting our lower energies be disturbed. And I understand like higher energy and lower energy. That's not lost on me. But the thing is, we were supposed to like have sex and not, come as you are, as you were, as I want you to be. Nope, can't arrive at the station. The train is not fucking coming in or out or in or out or in. It's just not. It's not happening. Like, so there was exercises you were supposed to do to make sure that didn't happen. But if you had a partner who you were supposed to practice with who, like, didn't want to do that. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do? And they'd call it, like, spilling the cup. Fuck. I spilled the cup a lot. I was single at the time. Remember this. I was not practicing that. Anyways, they wanted some money. They wanted to make money. And then, boom, shakalaka, laka, 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 laka. Second chamber came. Oh my God. Second chamber. What's that? Chamber to chamber? No, it's not. It's ridiculous. I don't know what I was in for. Tunics, matching tunics, sandals, matching sandals, initiation ceremonies, picking your spiritual mothers and fathers, like in your guides and your angels and stuff, and people who are going to take you to the next world and fucking shit. It was like a dark room. It was like Dungeons and Dragons, like come to life. I got taken into a dark room. It was completely dark. And some of you have heard this story before. I couldn't see anything. There's a candle lit. There was like a Bible on the table. There were some words. There's a bird. There's a bunch of shit. And then so I was like centrally deprivated for like fucking good knows, I don't know how long. And they take your ass out and they put you in front of a mirror in the dark with a candle. So that really messes with your like your sensory system. And it can give you like a sensory overload, which it did totally for me and scared the shit out of me. So this is like probably like the summer of like 2013. And I was expecting my firstborn, who's now 9. And after they had me drink something that was like knowingly like well known to harm a child, especially in utero, knowing I was pregnant, that was fucking it. Like that was fucking it for me. Like it had gotten weird and I got locked in like a fucking dark room in somebody's fucking house in the basement and fucking cellar with fucking dark shit everywhere and black walls. Fuck that. It was so fucking weird. Like, I remember that night, like on the way there to this person's house, because they lived just outside of my city, like in kind of like a farm town. And they live on this like beautiful like horse farm where like the horses were rehabilitated and they don't do anything all day except graze. And it's just like they're going out there to go to pasture and be free. And there's lots of animals out there. It was a beautiful place to be, but I didn't realize it was such a fucked up place to be. Come out of this fucking room. And they made me drink, like I remember making a joke that night in the car being like, to the people that were already in it and had gone through this ceremony, being like, oh, you guys aren't going to like make me drink the Kool-Aid, are you? Like making a Jonestown joke, like trying to be gross and just being weird. And they're like, no, Tanya, just don't be silly. You're like, whatever. And they totally like downplayed the fuck out of it and not cool. I was reassured that I didn't. And they lied. They lied big time. I had, like, to drink, well, they had me drink wormwood, like pure wormwood, like to taste the bitterness of life. And then something like really sweet. I don't know what it was, but like if you had diabetes, you'd probably die. I don't know what it was. To taste the sweetness and the bitterness of life. They wanted me to know about the duality. But I'm like, you knowingly gave me pure wormwood when I was pregnant? That's fucking tore up from the floor up. What the fuck is wrong with you? Obviously something. Obviously, like I say, there are marriages dissolving because of this cult, because people were like, some spouses were in it and some spouses were not in it. Like there were kids in this cult. One lady brought her kids all the time, and they were there for like all the ceremonies and like burning ceremonies outside. We were letting like spirits go. Runic ceremonies where we were moving our bodies in different ways. Different like almost like Luciferian sort of prayers. Things that kids probably shouldn't fucking be exposed to. Nothing sex stuff. Like nothing like some of these cults. But like they're still operating. There's a major racial divide happened though. With members and members. A major racial divide happened. Because a lot of the South American folks that were in the cult, like to begin with Samael Anwar and descendants of theirs, don't really think that white people, and I'm like not going to argue with them, don't really think that white people like deserve like the teachings and what they teach, and they think that's kind of being bastardized. And like, I don't know, because I'm not in it anymore, but like it would, I could see the divide happening even when I was in there and everything. It was not good. So it's called Gnostics. I'll tell you, if they come to your library, you better run the fuck away as fast as you can. Because seriously, they're the craziest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. Like really, like they're like it's some weird shit that you do not need in your life. Nope, you don't need that in your life. So I thought that's how I'd open the show. Now that that's out of the fucking way. Oh my God. Whoa. Oh, I'm gonna die. I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. I feel so much better. You understand my fascination with cults. Like, how can you not, like, understand my fascination with cults? I did the therapy thing. I did the deprogramming thing, like all the deprogramming thing. You can take the girl out of the cult, but you cannot take, like, the fascination of the study of human behavior with people in a cult out of someone who's been in a cult. You want to be an advocate, and at the same time, you're totally fascinated by what makes those cults and makes those people tick, and why. Why the hell do they do that? Like, why do they need to? The ideologies fascinate me because I don't want to see this happen to like another person or any people like at all. I think it's not healthy. So if anyone, sees this and, recognizes this behavior and something that they're going through, reach out. Let's chat. Seriously. Most of the cults I'm going to talk about are the ones that I find the most fascinating. They're kind of charismatic leaders, power, drugs, sex, rock and roll, the whole thing. Death cults, doomsday, apocalyptic shit. Oh, all that good stuff. At the top. Wild, 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 wild country. From India. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh and his right-hand man, well, a lady in this situation, Anand Sheila. If you ever got to see the documentary, biography, on Netflix, Wild Wild Country. Let me skim the surface for you. So, this was a man who came over to America and has made his yoga teachings. Yoga? Here we go with the yoga again. Really extreme yoga teachings, like violent yoga. And he made them U.S. friendly. He came over here, started schools. He got quite a following, and Anand Sheila was his right-hand person who took care of him and did all his business and his phone calls. Like, he hardly ever talked. Like, she did all his bidding for him. She's like his manager, his PR person, like everything. So, comes over to America, and him and his followers become so mainstream that they buy an entire fucking town. An entire town. I'm pretty sure the town's called Antelope. Sleepy little town. Tiny little town. His followers and him, they took it over. And they tried to really push out the townspeople that had been there for like a bazillion years. They were all mostly like elderly people, farming families, like just honest, hardworking, like blue collar folks that just like had no business being pushed out. Like, they'd lived there their whole lives. They didn't want to leave. They were comfortable kind of like where they were, sitting on their porches, getting old where they wanted to, dying in the houses they grew up in. Like, it was whatever your jam is, right, man? Like it's not fair that someone comes in and buys all like your land up and then forces your ass out. That's not fucking cool. Like, I understand being like inclusive, being like, hey, we've come to town, we've bought the town. How are you? Knock on doors, be friendly. No, don't be an asshole. Instead, they come to town one day and scare the fucking shit out of everybody there because they're all wearing like red and pink matching like tunics and pants and skirts and stuff. They all fucking match. They all look exactly the goddamn same. They roll into town, and this Bhagwan, the leader, he collected Rolls Royces, number one. I think he had something like 16. He would roll into town in a Rolls Royce, and they'd roll out a red carpet and throw flowers at him and shit. And the Rajneeshis, his followers, they build and develop like hundreds and hundreds of acres of land to make this giant infrastructure, which becomes Rajneeshpur, which is what he ends up renaming this town of Antelope. And like the friggin', like the population of it goes from like 100 people to like 100,000 people, because like people are coming from all around the world to join this fucking crazy ass fucking tore up cult that's nuts. At this point, they got their own restaurants, they've got their own shopping like places where you can buy clothes that are in the same color. Like at this point, he's like got lots and lots of money, like more money than he knows what to do with, because there's so many followers and there's so many pledges at the meditation conventions, and there's so many things at the yoga retreats, and there's a lot of sex going on between members and him and members. Famous people get involved. Drugs are there because he's brought Eastern culture into the Western world, and what do white people love? Drugs. And he wasn't used to that. He got some drugs in his system. There were some sex scandals. Like I say, the teachings and sermons got larger. More and more. Money got more enchanting. And it was changing hands more. This is one you will have to have a good watch on Netflix of Wild Wild Country, because it's so wild that I can't even believe it. Like, I watched Wild Wild Country because the reason I watched it is really crazy, because it's actually, I had one of Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh's books. I picked it up when I was 16, when I was really getting into meditation at a used bookstore. It was called The Orange Book, and I remember grabbing it and not really doing any of the meditations in it, but just like thinking it was interesting and looking through it. And I brought it to work one day, and I worked with a dentist who was the University of, he was the dental professor at the University of Delhi in India. And he looked at the book while I was eating my lunch, because we sat at the same table and ate lunch together, and I'd always bring him like samosas that I'd make and stuff. And he's like, Tanya, I've never met a white woman who can make samosas like you can. I'm like, I just follow a recipe on the internet, sir. Like, whatever, doc. So one day we're having lunch together, and I whip out this book, and he looks at it and he's like, Tanya, what are you doing with that book? That book's bad. Like that's an evil man. Like, do you know that? And I was like, no, doc. Like, I don't know. I had no idea. So we talked about it, and he basically spilled like fucking everything about Bhagwan and why Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh was such a horrible person. And I just kind of went to him like, oh my gosh, he's like India's like Jim Jones or whatever. Like, he's just a bad fucking man. Really bad. So check out Wild Wild Country when you can, and find out about the Bhagwan and the Rajneeshis and all the things that happened. Hotel burnings and guns and people shooting things and underground tunnels, and you don't want to miss it. But it's funny that I was drinking Kool-Aid last week. I didn't want to drink it this week because I thought I'd be poking fun, because I was talking about drinking the Kool-Aid and drinking Kool-Aid myself, because Jim Jones, everybody's favorite, Jim Jones. Woo! Whoa, Jim Jones, the leader of Jonestown. Baby, talk about a charming and charismatic leader. Jim Jones could sell ice to a fucking polar bear. I am not even kidding you. For crying out loud, Jim Jones was crazy. He led so many people and ultimately led them to like their death, like, and mass suicide. So why does it have to go there? It starts off so innocent. Like, he's preaching at a church. He's combining whites and blacks, which is really not done at the time. It was super frowned upon. He didn't give a fuck. He was preaching at the People's Church. He was the top fucking dog. He was like top tier, big guy. Oh, being inclusive, being progressive. What's not to like? He led the church for a long time. He led the People's Temple from 1955 to 1978 when he ultimately passed away. We'll talk about that later. But he also claimed to have psychic powers and like occult sort of powers, and his followers believed him, and they followed him to Guyana, to his own compound, which he called Jonestown, and he really promised them like a nirvana, a utopia, somewhere beautiful, a paradise. But it actually left over 900 people dead in an act of like mass suicide. Told you I have to have my notes to fiddle with. But this was known as the Jonestown Massacre. If you don't know, if you've never heard about it, it was a cyanide spiked Kool-Aid, a cyanide spiked punch. That's why I say don't drink the Kool-Aid. That's where that expression comes from. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Because everyone there drank the Kool-Aid except for Jim Jones. He didn't drink the Kool-Aid. He had a gunshot wound. And some people said the death from his gunshot wound was like a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So that's a conspiracy theory, whether someone else shot Jim Jones or Jim Jones shot Jim Jones. But no one's around to talk about it. Oh yeah, because they all drank the fucking Kool-Aid with cyanide in it. Now, yeah, Jim Jones got a pop to the head. But like Jim Jones was like really heavily on drugs too. Not cyanide, obviously. That's a killer drug. But he was taking a lot of psychedelics and stuff like that. And that was really popular with cult leaders at the time. Really tripping balls on psychedelics. And popular with cult leaders even now, to this day. It's this like taking drugs thing. It's not even microdosing, because I know a lot of people that microdose for like things like depression and anxiety, things like that, and mental health problems and stuff like that. But these are people that are like macro super dosing and scaring the shit out of themselves and ruining their nervous systems. Like, it's like you're giving yourself a fucking lobotomy with all the drugs you're putting in your body. It's nuts. It's nuts. And so I think Jim Jones at the time's brain was probably so fucking fried from all the drugs he was doing. God knows what he did. And you never know. No one knows because no one can ask, right? Now, number 8. Oh, we have another premier kind of beautiful promise of nirvana, a beautiful utopia to escape doomsday and dying and the end of the fucking world. Canada's own favorite convicted serial fucking killer and cult leader, Rock Thériault. Rock Thériault was a crazy fucking guy from Quebec. He was, like I said, a convicted killer and cult leader. And he was the leader of a gang and cult called the Ant Hill Kids. If you've never heard of the Ant Hill Kids, oh Christ, this is a brutal one. Trigger warning. Hold on to your hats for this one, because you're going to have to Google some of this, because some of this I'm not going to talk about it, because I've done a podcast on the Ant Hill Kids and just the Ant Hill Kids itself. It's back in the archives. You can check it out. Check out Rock Thériault and the Ant Hill Kids. The podcast I did about it, it's brutal. So hide your wife, hide your kids, just put your earpods on and just send the kids out of the room. Like, you gotta be 18 plus to listen to this shit. No one wants to listen to this mouth. I'm just kidding. But like I say, he was the leader on the Ant Hill Kids, and like, just like a queen ant, he sat on his fucking ass and did nothing all day except bark orders at his little like drones, his little ants, while they did all the work. Especially kids. They built his empire. They moved kind of like often. They were kind of transient. Like, they'd move in the middle of nowhere. He was really a violent drunk that subjected his wrongdoing followers to beatings and like botched surgeries, castrations while they're awake, bashing in people's kneecaps to kind of keep them in one spot, using a hammer to beat people, like the back claw of a hammer. He was fucking like ruthless. This guy was absolutely insane, like nuts. Like, I'm just glad he's not alive anymore. But like, he started the cult near Burnt River, Ontario, which is really crazy because I've like been through there. Not knowing that he had a cult there. Like, I didn't know. If I knew, I would have taken more pictures, but crazy. He had 8 fucking wives. He had 3 like minions like working under him, like his little underlings did, like he barked his fucking bullshit down at. And he had 23 fucking kids, all of generally like, which in the end, like of the cult stuff, were removed by Children's Services. All 23 of the kids for being in fucking ridiculous fucking conditions. But eventually, like, they built a colony of buildings and they made money homesteading with like eggs and selling the eggs from chickens they had and like candles and making jam. And really the Anthill Kids was about like money and just violence though. Like Rock Terrier was just like, you see, he was a really crazy guy who just wanted power over everything and everyone. It was nuts, 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 nuts. Next. It's funny that I say next because this sounds like next. Number 7. Lucky 7 is NXIVM. Keith Raniere's brainchild. The brainchild of Keith Raniere and Nancy Saltzman and her daughter Lauren. They kind of founded it. And the other people that I know and celebrities were really attached to this. Like, for instance, Claire Brofman, who is the Seagrams heiress, the heiress of the Seagrams fortune. And as well, celebs include Allison Mack, Kristen Cruick. It was like a big thing. Keith Raniere was like a racketeer, and he's a sex offender, and he ran this human potential development cult. It was all about bettering yourself and bettering yourself as a human and path to enlightenment and betterness and your wealth and being a woman and fucking girl power and fuck yeah and all that stuff. Under the guise of all this female empowerment, it was very tier-based. It was a level-based cult, and these are well-off women that are running it. So obviously you trust it. They're smart women. They're well-off business women. They know what they're fucking talking about. They're raking it in. Some of these girls are friends with the fucking Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama is coming to speak at things for NXIVM for Keith Raniere. See, this guy's got a lot of people in his back fucking pocket. He's raking in the dollars, but then all of a sudden, you know, this was the level-based cult, and it was successful. And the more you pay, you advance up the ladder of the cult. But soon, allegations of sexual abuse began to escape in the cult. Not people, but allegations started coming up. Allegations of abuse came up, assault, torture, rape, all those kinds of things. They tried to keep it real quiet, but they couldn't. They couldn't keep it quiet because, newsflash, Keith Raniere had been branding the NXIVM symbol on women who were in the club, party in the club. If you wanted to really be in the club, you would get fucking branded like a fucking animal. You shouldn't even brand animals. I don't believe in that. Burned into your skin the NXIVM symbol, which was actually, when you turned it one way, it was Keith Raniere's sick ass fucking. It was this disgusting initials to his name. If that's not sick, I don't know what it is. So NXIVM's fucked up. That's when you should watch like NXIVM and all that stuff on the TV. Check the NXIVM cult out. I think it's on HBO Max. Children of God at number 6. Children of God is sitting at number 6. Children of God's weird. It's a sex cult. Children got hurt. I don't like Children of God. This one scares the shit out of me because I'm a mother. I don't like the fucking cults where kids get hurt. Most cults, kids get hurt. Kids don't belong in fucking cults, man. It's like a kid driving a car. Kids drinking coffee. Don't belong in cults either. No. Cars, cults, cannabis, coffee, kids, don't mix. No. This one got a lot of attention when the famous Hollywood Phoenix family, you know, River Phoenix and Joaquin Phoenix and Summer Phoenix, all the Phoenix family, that famous Hollywood family, they were born and kind of raised in this particular cult. They speak very openly about it and living in South America with the cult. And there's lots of internet footage on the YouTube about the Phoenix family living there, like kind of like swimming in the rainforest and stuff like that and performing on the streets. It was formed in 1968 and founded by David Brandt. He was formerly a Christian missionary, and he recruited lots of folks because he worked with a lot of kids and stuff like that. He recruited a lot of people, but mostly a lot of families and kids and stuff because he was kind of like a Pied Piper, like of weirdness. And it was a Pied Piper situation with a charismatic leader, like I say, that plays a tune, and the kids play along. And in fact, the kids literally play along because some of the kids in the cults made money for the cults. The way they made money was with the children. They had them play instruments and perform like shows, and people came and paid really good money to see all these like, you know, church children perform these shows. So they used them. Churches still do this to this day because I've seen it fucking happen. People bring kids over here and they house them for Africa in churches. They did this up at my dad's house, and they brought all these kids over from Africa. They housed them for like 2 weeks so they could perform at the church. They used them like performing puppets. It was not cool. I don't believe in it. Culty. But again, these children are doing concerts. You can see videos of it on YouTube. Like I say, even like River and Joaquin Phoenix and their brothers and sisters on the street doing all kinds of things, performing like, just like crazy. The parents are fucking swinging sexually like orangutans. They're just everybody's fucking each other. You're allowed to fuck whoever you want. Kids are allowed to have sex at like ages where they shouldn't even know what it is. Kids are allowed to also have sex with adults. That's permitted. So there's like statutory rape going on. There is like encouraged sex with women and community members so they can kind of like do something to the cult called flirty fishing and recruit men into the cult by just going to bars, kind of getting drunk with them and using their vag to kind of get the guys in the cult. And that's how the women got the guys in the cult. And they got the control for men who wanted to run this cult and gain the sex, the money, the power, the control. And they had these women sleep with these non-members and recruit them. And using your body to recruit people was a way to worship God. So lots of people had, like I say, underage sex. There's a lot of statutory rape. So many child survivors from this particular cult, the Children of God, have written books, and they're heart-wrenching to read. I've read a few of them, but like had to like stop because like at the point like where like I'm like getting sick to my stomach because I can't read the cases anymore. It's just so much abuse that happened in those cults. But the children of survivors, they still get together and they take care of one another. There's been a lot of children that have committed suicide. They grew up in that particular sect because it's so jarring and so bad for you and so harmful to your spirit. That's not what happens. At number 5, going down here, the Manson family. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Now everybody knows a Good Time Charlie. And this struggling, bitter, jaded, fucking wayward musician is not it. He's not a Good Time Charlie. Charles Manson almost fooled the Beach Boys. I mean, his power over his found family of, you know, first kind of misfit sort of women and wayward teenage girls would grow like because of his sex power over them. They thought he was good looking. They all loved to bang him. Everybody was fucking each other. It was free love. It was the 60s. Everybody was just having sex willy-nilly. Everybody was having sex with each other. There's a lot of acid at the time. So that brings along like a promiscuous sex because you're not really aware of your surroundings. Acid at that time was quite strong, different than the acid made in laboratories today. Acid in the 60s was not acid like it is now. If you could find acid like you could in the 60s, the world would be a different place. We probably manufacture it and make it into an antidepressant without the dissociative properties. Take that away and it would be okay. But honestly, mostly Manson's power over his family would eventually lead to probably one of America's worst fucking horror stories and one of America's sweetheart kind of stories going like absolutely wrong. Even Charles Manson involved the Beatles in his reign of bullshit. They were a commune, a gang, a cult led by Charles Manson in California. The Manson family ran from the late 60s to the early 1970s, and at most, the members of the Manson family made up about maybe, I don't know, how many disillusioned hippies did he follow? I don't know, probably at one point the most people he had were over 100 cult followers, but like followed him directly, and they like lived all together, and they were commune type. They moved around like a lot. They lived in the valley, like down kind of in the sand, and some like old Wild West town that they used to shoot movies in. It was kind of decrepit, and abandoned, so they lived in it. And they eventually led to orchestrating one of the worst murders in America, the Tate and LaBianca murders. And they were some of the worst murders. Like, Charles Manson didn't actually get his own hands dirty. He didn't have to do anything. He just gave the orders to these evil and gruesome crimes. And the people in his sect, especially the ladies and a few of the gentlemen, very few of the gentlemen, like 2 or 3 gentlemen, but mostly ladies, carried out these horrible, horrific crimes. And I mean, the pictures are everywhere. Charles Manson did obviously get in trouble for it. And, you know, but the women in this group, like, still, like, to this day, they still believe in him and were brainwashed by his bullshit. Like, I really don't understand, like, how cults go like this. But again, they're like force-fed acid. He'd give them acid and he wouldn't take any. So he'd show up and look like God to them. But he was sober, so he could mind fuck them. Speaking of a mind fuck, number 4 is Heaven's Gate. Fuck Heaven's Gate. So crazy. It's like a doomsday space death cult. I'd say about this one is whacked out shit. Like, this is a whacked out shit suicide cult. It's crazy. It was made by Marshall Applewhite. Marshall Applewhite. The guy was crazy. He ran this space cult. He collected enough funds from his believers to rent houses from kind of Dallas to Denver. And they lived like a boot camp type routine. Talked a lot about aliens and the supernatural, cloud ships, aliens coming for them, aliens coming down. There was a doomsday. There was a day that the aliens were going to come get them. He kept getting money off of members and stuff like that. So eventually he collected enough funds to, in October 1996, the group rented this gigantic mansion in Rancho Santa Fe in California. And they kept putting out videos and stuff like that, like on the internet, being like, this is your last chance. This is your last chance to evacuate the earth. Like, things are coming to get you. Like, you better evacuate the earth, aka like kill yourself, evacuate your body and get out of the earth so the celestial bodies and the angels and the aliens can get you, you know. They put out 2 like really big pleas for help and calls for help about getting out of the earth. And then the unthinkable kind of fucking happened, because all of a sudden in March of 1996, 39 dead bodies were found, all at the same residence in the mansion. They all committed suicide over a 4-day period, including fucking Marshall Applewhite himself. He was dead, waiting for the fucking mothership. Just all dead in their beds. Jeez. Then, number 3, not a doomsday cult, not a death cult. Ooh, relationship cult. Weird. Everybody has their love. Everybody wants to fall in love. You got Match.com, all those Twitter or Tinder or Grindr or all those Tumblr. I don't know. All the lures and all the apps that work on dating apps. So you got, everybody wants to either like find their partner or they just want to fuck. It's either or. It's either they're fun to ride or you want to be seen with them all the time. There's 2 choices. Like, it's like whatever. And I don't give a fuck what your choice is, as long as your choice is not twin flame universe. Holy shit. Look out. There's someone for everyone on this planet. Your soulmate. Your twin flame. And these folks, with their pricey seminars, abuse, and absolutely fucking illegal advice and activity, it didn't turn out so well. This was started by Jeff and Sheila Devine. I don't know if they called themselves that or what. They formed Twin Flames in America around 2017. So not too long ago it formed. It's a young one. They offered relationship classes online for lots of money to guarantee that you find that you're like your soulmate, your twin flame, that someone that you have such an intense connection with that it's scary, that it scares the shit out of you. And you are instructed to chase them no matter what. Come hell or high water, you are going to be with the person who is going to be your twin frickin' flame, and you better be together. So you're going to chase them no matter what. And stalking, it doesn't even matter. Do you know how many people from that fucking cult were charged with stalking? Because even though the person they didn't want to be with, like, broke up with them, they'd be like, no, we're meant to be together, because they'd be encouraged in these relationship groups to go. And a lot of these people ended up going to jail because of this fucking crazy cult. So like, what can I say? I guess there's somebody for everybody, but not twin flames. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Go on Tinder or something. I don't give a shit what you do. Freemasons at number 2. Freemasons, in my mind, are a cult. Why? Because it's secret society. Secret society. The good old boys club of rings, checkerboard, secret handshakes, and aprons full of secrets. We got the Secret Society of Masons, Freemasons. Weird, and Eastern Stars, but I say, deemed the oldest fraternal organization in the world, however, not the most universally accepted organization in the world is Freemasonry. Created in the 18th century in Scotland, so you know they're colonizers. It's spread across all the land, and even Buzz Aldrin, listen to this, founded a Masonic lodge on the fucking moon. Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut. Freemasonry adheres to Enlightenment values, but its members, however, have committed much cruelty to the world. Freemasons were very anti-Semitic long before Hitler came along, and before Hitler did not like Jews. Guess who hated Jews more? Freemasons. They did not like Jews at all, because they were already participating, like Freemasons were already participating in major anti-Semitic activities. So it's a huge paradox from what they preach, because famous Masons include Walt Disney, Mozart, Nat King Cole, Buffalo Bill, Oscar Wilde, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Peter Sellers. Those are just a few to name. With ties to the KKK and the Mafia, because of its organizational model, no one really knows how many other brotherhoods that Freemasons run with. Nobody knows who they're totally hooked up with and affiliated with. It's kind of crazy. There's secret passwords and oaths. There's satanic symbolism, Luciferian symbolism and rituals, false religion, I think, and a lot of dogmatic stuff. There are a lot of prominent murders, and even involving people that are Masons. Look into it. I was approached to be in Eastern Stars, like the Lady Mason shit. And I was just like, no, because I saw a lot of their stuff was tied to white nationalism and white kind of power and stuff. And I was just like, oh, we don't play that way here. So anyways, number 1 cult that I have here based on favorite cults is Christianity. Catholics, cults, Christianity, all that stuff, churchy shit. The biggest cult of all, what is it? Seriously, what's the biggest cult in the world? Christianity. Worshipping a male god, he's male son, and it's not even his biological son. It's like born, like no one's seen anyone have sex with God. No one's seen them. Like no one's seen God or Jesus, actually, in real life. You're worshiping people you don't see. Jesus was Jewish, as per history. If you belong to a church, a percent of your income goes into it, just like a cult. You gather and worship something you've never seen before, like a cult. Sacrifices are made, like if you're Catholic and stuff, just like a cult. Rituals, like the blood and the body of Christ, just like a cult. That's sick. Man, and then let's talk about the church using the entire entity and their platform for fucking an excuse for child abuse. That's another fucking thing a cult does. That's fucked up. So don't sit there and tell me that the church ain't no fucking cult, because it is. Fuck churches, especially the Catholic ones. The ones that have been fucking caught too and busted. Some haven't yet. But the more and more kids keep telling the truth, and they're just... We're finding out that the men in dresses that are hurting our children are not like the all-gender bathroom people. They're not the drag queen storytime people. They're the people dressed in papal robes and that are doing fucking wine ceremonies at church and giving communion. They're not doing drag queen storytime. Wrong dress, wrong row, wrong place. And they're in these places, and altar boys are given, wine. You've even seen wandering hands over at the Boy Scouts. Like, what's next on the What's Next episode? You'll see this. I'm going to talk about Boy Scouts and stuff on the next episode because there's a big trigger warning. I believe I've probably saved the worst for last because I always save the worst for last. I say those are my 2 last calls because you always save the worst for last. And I did. This episode challenged me because I was like, I can't like shit on all these dudes and stuff like that. This episode changed me because I found out that females and people that identify as female, they run cults too. And it's not something that I had a lot of experience with until now. And now I feel like, am I experienced? If Jimi Hendrix asked me, I would say yes, I am experienced because I've been used to the run-of-the-mill, male-run sex power cults, veggie, diet, yoga, etc. kind of thing. I thought I'd seen it all. And then I saw the Mother God cult, the Love Has Won cult, and I saw the family out of Australia. Like, I'm in the Swiftie cult, so I don't know. So I didn't know what the hell to think. So first I saw the Mother God cult, Love Has Won. Oh my God. So I saw it, I read it, I read about it on the internet about it. I watched a bit of their live streams, and then I watched the HBO Max documentary, which blew my socks off because I was like, what? It started with this girl just named Amy Carlson, who later declared herself as the second coming of Jesus Christ, Joan of Arc, Marilyn Monroe, all these different reincarnations of people with her galactic A-team. I pity the fool that don't believe in Amy Carlson. That's not Mother God. It's crazy. Because she ended up on Dr. Phil via Skype with her sister and her mom being like, you need to escape this cult eventually. She didn't. They begged her to come off. She'd abandoned her children because she was begged to go to this cult by the angels, she said. So she started this Love Has Won cult in Crestone, Colorado. She left her own town where she was really good at what she did. She was like a manager at McDonald's. She went up the ladder fast. She knew how to talk to people. She kind of knew how to win friends and influence people. She did Dale Carnegie the fucking shit out of people. So she moved somewhere where the veil was very thin, where, there's rabbit holes and disappearing and reappearing and fifth dimension and all that stuff. And so she started off really young, moving there and meeting this really old man who she'd met off these enlightenment websites on the internet. And he was probably 40 years her senior. Hung around, smoked pot all day. She learned all about enlightening herself with him. So she ended up with him, and then next, she ended up with a different guy. She ended up with another guy who kind of helped her off in the cult, and she decided that she wanted to start giving messages to the world. So everything she learned from this first guy, she kind of took all that knowledge from this older gentleman, took all his weed, and fucked off and was with this younger guy who's really good with technology. So she told him, if I'm Mother God, you're the next Father God. So there was her first Father God. So this is Father God number 2. So he's really good with technology and marketing, and he decides she needs to just put up shop and do a website and all that stuff. And so she does. Starts doing live streams every day, and she's everyone. She was Joan of Arc, Marilyn Monroe. She's got a Galactic A-Team. She's got Elvis, because that's her son. She's got John Lennon. That's her commander. Her main ambassador is Robin Williams. This woman was just born her regular self in McPherson, Kansas in 1975. But apparently, even as a child, tornadoes showed up wherever she went. In 1998, she managed McDonald's in Dallas in Texas. But then one night, she did ecstasy. And she said that it just fucked her up so much that she had a spiritual ascension. And put her into another world. She put her in touch with angels and energies and the 5-dimensional world. And she couldn't understand completely the 3-dimensional world anymore. And she didn't believe we were living in the 3D world anymore. She thought it was all a lie. We're all being enslaved by the Matrix. And she could not live within the 3-dimensional world anymore. So the 3D world, if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, and if she obviously confuses you, what are all these D's? What are all these dimensions? Like, what is this? So D is for dimension. So 3D, so is the three-dimensional world, what we live in right now, what we see in front of us. McDonald's is 3D, your house is 3D, my house is 3D, this cup is 3D, my books are 3D, I'm 3D, all that stuff. Fourth dimension, 4D, the fourth dimension, 4D, is that veil where things between the living world and the spiritual world become very thin. So things like dreams and stuff almost dying. And then 5D is being so exalted that you're in a consciousness that no one in the 3D or 4D world can even understand. Like you're in a consciousness above everyone else, that your vibration, your personal energy vibration is so high that everyone else is so below you and vibrating in such a low point that they can't understand you. And so whether you're screaming or whatever, apparently you're at a higher vibration than everyone else. If you're in the 5D world and you are just consciousness and you're just lifting the veil all the way up. All the way up. So this woman was something else. She was having people follow her all over the place, like, and they were selling their natural health products to people, just kind of smoking weed, getting high all the time on mushrooms and acid, like really over fucking doing it with mushrooms and acid, like not just smoking a little bit of weed, like high from fucking morning till night, doing live streams. She had girls that like had never been anywhere before, like they were rich girls from fucking Florida. Just down there she'd recruited because they just felt like they didn't belong with their parents. So they just came down and were like, we're crunchy granola hippies with her. She got all their money. She was giving it to this guy who was the archangel, Michael. His name was Mikhail. And he took care of all the money. She didn't give a fuck what happened to her as long as she was getting taken care of. Enter someone. If someone is vibing so high, what would make them even more divine for people to think they were more godlike? Well, someone is vibing so high, and if they can love and show affection for someone who is vibing really low on the vibrational scale, who's a horrible fucking person, then they must be God. So enter this guy named Jason. He's the next and final father god. The guy's a meth head. He's a career criminal. He has explosive anger disorder. He's absolutely nuts. Like he is like ultra male fucking chauvinist. He's just like punchy, fighty, yelly, just like, oh, the kind of person, the kind of male energy, the kind of female energy that I fucking hate. Stay the fuck away from me. No, thank you. So they decided, and Jason decided, that they needed to move her to Hawaii because she was getting sick. She was getting sick. She was downing their meds that she was taking every day, which she was taking colloidal silver and other stuff that she was taking. She was drinking a ton of alcohol, like a ton. Like to the naked eye, everyone would be like, oh, she's taking her medicine. That's what her cult followers thought. But like anyone else would be like, you're a fucking alcoholic. Drinking to the point of blacking out every night. It's just like, just putting up with all the PTSD that she had in her life, because she had a lot of abusive men in her life, I would say probably led to that. So she moved to Hawaii and did the unfortunate thing of claiming that she was Pele, which is the volcano goddess of Hawaii. So the Hawaiians and all the locals got fucking pissed. And they decided that she was misappropriating their culture and their belief system. And they fucking smashed their windows. They harassed her like crazy. They're like, fucking go home. Because she left like a few kids behind. She challenged my view and standpoints on cults being inevitably male and being about sex and just power. Like most cults are like zero drugs, zero alcohol, zero meat, etc. They're about eliminating outside factors, people, family, movies, TV, music, etc. With all the kids that live there, Amy was frustrated. She locked these kids in the fucking closet because she was so frustrated with them. The community in Hawaii eventually, the mayor got so pissed that he told them to fucking leave and go back to America. And they did. She did. And sometimes she didn't even care to believe her own fucking bullshit. I think she got so high she just didn't give a fuck anymore. She would have drunken ramblings of like narcissism, talking about how great she was. But then she'd also have drunken ramblings about how, am I really God or is this just bullshit? You know what I mean? Am I really doing this? Like, is this real? So it was kind of crazy. So she is like blue and she's getting like skeletal at this point. And so they're just like moving her around, and like her followers are doing live streams for her. They're picking her up. They're cooking for her. They're walking her around because at that point she can't walk. Her feet are swelling. Hello, you're having liver failure. Like you drink like a fucking fish. She's smoking weed like it's her job. Like Oscar the Grouch in his can. Like she's made of weed. Because they can grow it where they are in Oregon. So she just up, and one day she, in New Year's Eve, I think 2021, she told her sister that she was like gonna die, and the Galactics were gonna come and get her, and the spiritual guides were gonna come and get her. And so they moved to Oregon in April of 2021, her and like the cult. Like, in this point, like I say, she's blue and she's skeletal. She like hardly weighs anything. And she's taking so much colloidal silver all the time. When it, like her family saw her, they're like, fuck, why is she blue? And her sister kind of looked into it, and it's colloidal silver. Like, I've seen the guy, everyone see the guy who went on Oprah who looked like a Smurf. Too much colloidal silver. He was actually blue like a blueberry. Couldn't wash it off. Like, you could try. Like, it poisons you. It gives you heavy metal poisoning. So you can wash your eyes out with it, but don't drink it. Fuck. So anyway, in April 2021, they moved to Oregon. It felt like a bad idea at the time because Father says, you know, in April 2021, she just dies. She just up and dies where they are. You know, she's ascended now. Everything's okay. So, the last Father God says everything's cool because the club members, the cult members, they're freaking the fuck out. They're like, what the fuck happened? They're like, oh, she ascended. She's at rest. She's resting. Her heart's still beating. She died at a hotel. So she just did not want anyone to give her body to the cabal, which meant giving it to the hospital, going anywhere in the 3D world to get help. So they transport this body from this hotel to a forest in Oregon. And while they're in the forest in Oregon, they camp out with her dead body in a tent. Father God sleeps just like right beside her. Sleeps beside dead Mother God. Slapped up in a sleeping bag with sunglasses on and Christmas lights on her. Wondering when she'd picked up anything that was going to get her picked up by the Galactics. They were just wondering when were the Galactics coming. Like, where the fuck is Robin Williams? Like, where's John Lennon? Where's Donald Trump? Where's everyone who said they would fucking be here for her when she died? Where is everybody? Where did they all go? 10 days after sleeping with her corpse in a fucking tent, they drive back to Colorado. And it's like the Father of the universe, the Father God, this bearded guy, and the dead mom. All of them, they cross 5 state lines with a fucking dead body wrapped in a sleeping bag with Christmas lights on it and sunglasses like Weekend at fucking Bernie's. They get pulled over by the motherfucking cops, and the cop doesn't even notice. They let them go. Fucking kidding me? So all of a sudden, while this is happening, she's dead. Michael all of a sudden pulls $200,000 out of the bank. Then all of a sudden drains it and just like takes the last $50K. Jason brings her body back to, this is the Father God, brings Mother God's body, Amy's body, back to the mission house that they had there in the first place. So 12 days post-mortem, Michael sees her body and he trips fucking balls after he's taken all his money out because he didn't realize how dead she was. He trips balls and he calls the authorities because he's like, what the fuck? Because all these disciples wanted to keep going. They devoured her. They just like stayed around her body with an EMF meter. We're like checking to see if she had any electricity around her and stuff. Terrible. Terrible. They wanted to make sure she was like dead or not. So the authorities like busted in on them after all this happened. And they found like everyone there just talking calmly while she was in the bedroom, just like rotting away as a corpse, lying in bed like a mummified fucking corpse. So watch that one if you can off of HBO Max. It's called Love Has Won, the Mother God documentary. It's fucking weird. It's about cults. It's great. But I am saying the absolute worst for last. The Family. The Family, another female-run cult. Again, challenging my belief system about the worst cults in the world. But this is Australia's worst cults. Probably likely the worst woman to come out of Australia. And this case will make your blood fucking boil, because I know I was boiling about this one. Trigger warning again. It has to do with children. Very graphic. It's the most evil cult I've probably heard of that stole babies. Stole babies. It was Anne Hamilton Byrne, the most evil woman. It makes Rock Terrio and the Anthill Kids look like mother's milk. This is not really a mother biologically. She wanted to be called a mother. She was a yoga-loving multimillionaire. She believed that she possessed spiritual powers. She stole babies. Like, you're going to be fucking angry, because I'm angry as fuck. She changed her birth name. She was born December 30th, 1921, close to Melbourne. And she was the oldest of 7 children in Melbourne, Australia. She had a bad childhood. She has a completely absent father who literally just didn't give a fucking care to be there. Wasn't there. Mom was a Brit, and she claimed, self-proclaimed, that she was a medium. And she could see things into the afterlife. But she was actually diagnosed a paranoid schizophrenic, was in and out of hospitals kind of all the time. She set herself on fire and her hair on fire and walked down the street. So that got her put into the schizophrenic hospital. So she was the oldest of all the kids. So when she wasn't taking care of her brothers and sisters, she was in and out of orphanages her whole life. So at 20, no one knows really what happened to her once she hit 8. From then on, no one knows what she did. She went to school, she enrolled in school. And that's the last record they have of her until she blipped on the map again when she hit 20 in 1941. She moved away and she wanted a new life, a glamorous life of kind of children and a husband and lots of happy kids and a big family, and she fantasized about a life that she just didn't have. So she meets this guy named Lionel Harris, and they settle down, they buy a house, they get married, and they have a daughter, and her name is Judith. They're in their mid-30s, and Anne and her husband want to go adopt a child because she feels like she's too old to have one at this point. But she wants a sibling for Judith, so they get the adoption. It's all set, and Lionel goes to pick up this beautiful child. And on the way there to pick up the child, Lionel is involved in a tragic car wreck and tragically passes away before he can actually go get the baby. So then the adoption agency nixes the adoption. They're like, I'm not giving a baby away to a single mother in England at the time, or Australia, and it was frowned upon. Single mothers were frowned upon, even though she already had a child. It was no fault of her own that her husband died in a car wreck. She was not allowed to have this baby. So I think this is where she snapped, because she was following the rules about adoption and everything like this. So she decides a new identity is born. Her name is not Evelyn anymore. She's not Evelyn Harris, Lionel Harris's wife, anymore. She's going to call herself Anne Hamilton. And she found yoga in the early 60s. She found going to classes were good. Led by a female world traveler. She lived in caves and stuff, this woman that she found very fascinating. So she soaked up all of her Eastern teachings and all of her Eastern philosophy, connecting with the higher power and so on and so forth. So she became a yoga teacher her damn self and a preacher, and she'd indoctrinate and fascinate her students and clients. They became obsessed with her. They just loved her because there was something so charismatic about her. She was very influential, and she was very able to control and talk to people easily and just get their attention and keep it there. They liked her. She got a little extreme and controversial, I think, at the yoga school, and then they fired her. So she was like, you know what? You can't fucking fire me. I'll start my own. So that's exactly what she did. She started her fucking own yoga school. And then people from the school that she'd done yoga with came and followed her and went to her yoga school. And people rose to the top. This is what happens. They rise to the top and their belief systems become too extreme. This is how cults start. And then you get kicked out. And then it's start your own. And that becomes start your own cult 101. If you won't accept me, I'll start my own. Look out. So she portrayed herself as a godlike figure, and people really thought she was a higher being. She knew it too. So she capitalized on that, and she started telling her followers that she descended from French royalty. She'd use Ouija boards. She'd teach clients, not like friends or, supporters, clients, people she was getting money from, about the supernatural, and said she was a medium like her mother who was schizophrenic. She said she would escape death and just be youthful all the time. So what she did was, which was not common and not a lot of people knew about in the 60s, was plastic surgery. She'd have tons of facelifts. And if you see pictures of her, you can see her like forehead becoming a 5 head, becoming a 6 head, becoming a 7 head. Like her just, all they did was like pull your hair back then. They didn't do it properly like they do now. Facelift is totally different now. Midlifts are different now. Nose job. She tried to trick the fountain of youth, man. Tried not to age. Her hairline slowly, like I say, receded. In the 60s, it was frowned upon. So she convinced women in her classes to leave their husbands. Come to me, she said. Come to me. No one else will accept you if you leave your husbands, because if you're absolutely miserable in your marriage, come be with me and my family. I'll take care of you. And she did. In 1962, she realized that all of her followers were like divorced women who had left their husbands. She needed a man with power to grow the cult, so she set her sights on Dr. Reiner Johnson. He was an English sort of doctor at Oxford, and he was like an actual PhD in physics. He was fascinated by counterculture and Eastern philosophy, so they never met. But how does she get her claws into him? This is ridiculous. So she sleeps with his gardener to get info to predict his future. Like she's going to predict his future. So she knocks on his door after banging the gardener, getting all the inside scoop on him, fucking the gardener fucking her, spilling the beans, knocks on his door one night out of the blue and says, "You don't know who I am, but I know exactly who you are, and I'm going to tell your future. I'm a medium. I'm clairvoyant. You and your wife are going to India, and she's going to get ill on the trip." So he believed her. Why not? And she predicted diarrhea. Anytime I've traveled anywhere that's been like that, you're going to get diarrhea. It's called traveler's diarrhea. It doesn't mix with your stomach. Naive dude. He thought she was Jesus Christ incarnate. First male member of the cult with his wife, 1963. Dr. J and Anne named this. Listen to this. They originally named the family in Australia the Great White Brotherhood, and that's what it was. And there was no persons of color within this cult. Later, they called themselves the family because these people recruited members. There was a growing cult, and spreading Anne's teachings was really important. Men telling their wives, doctors, lawyers, politicians, wives telling their husbands, go to these yoga classes. Females, just saying, she's got these healing powers. She's amazing. You can reincarnate yourself. She's got doctors in her pocket now. So she's got meds. She's got poison in the cult. And she starts poisoning cult members with doctors. And then they don't realize she's not curing these people of their diseases. She just gets the doctors to stop poisoning them. Lots of drugs used in this cult, specifically LSD. Dr. Lance Whitaker, who she had in her back pocket, loved acid. He just loved LSD. And the initiation ceremonies would be off the fucking chain. She would get people pumped full of acid. I'm talking 7 or 8 times what you should probably take of acid if you're going to take acid. I'm not talking microdosing. I'm talking if you want to have a full acid trip. Full stamp. Full stop, take the stamp, But really getting people high off their ass on acid, leaving them in a dark room, sensory deprivating them, and then all of a sudden after 8 hours she'd appear out of nowhere. In a spotlight in a white robe with a smoke machine going and a fucking wind machine going. And she'd look like Jesus. And these people are high as fuck on acid. And she looks like Jesus. It tracks. It's not crazy. So she meets a woman whose name is Joy. And Joy owns a psychiatric hospital. And so she got this woman to believe she was Jesus, a female incarnation of Jesus, and write her will over to her and give her this psychiatric hospital when she dies. So obviously this lady's already old. She charmed the pants off her. So this lady dies lickety split. Now Anne owns a psychiatric facility, a private psychiatric facility where she can do whatever the fuck she wants in 2 signatures. All it takes is 2 signatures of any doctors. Doesn't matter who. And remember how many people in the medical system and lawyers she's got in her back pocket at this point. She's got every rich and wealthy white fucking person in her back pocket in Australia. 2 signatures to commit anyone who she wanted to form in her psych ward. 2. That's it. To form them in. Not family. Anyone who stepped out of line, questioned the cult, was told they'd be committed. So 1968, she reigned for 5 years and put a lot of people in the psychiatric ward. And by this time, she's 47, but she wants people to think she's like in her 30s. She meets Bill Burr. Bill Burr. I don't want to say Bill Burr because all I can think of is Bill Burr. But she meets a guy named Bill Burr. And he was actually happily married with 4 kids. But he got obsessed with her, and his wife committed to the hospital. He got her committed to the psychiatric ward because he was so obsessed with Anne. He wanted his wife committed. So he got her committed. She was starved. She was given shock therapy, pumped full of drugs when there was nothing wrong with her. He left his wife, and he also abandoned all 4 of his fucking children. For someone who wanted that many kids, she didn't want his? Okay, so the cult had 500 members. All these middle to upper class, white, wealthy people going like on weekly acid trips, listening to her fucking sermon bullshit. Now, at this point, she needs more money herself, so she demands 10% of the wages of all these cult members. So 500 members at like 10% of their wages, and they're all like doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. She's making bank. She's putting in fucking huge amounts of money. She's soon a multi-millionaire. Spouse swapping. She made people do this like to degrade them. She thought it was fun to like laugh at people fucking other people's spouses and like causing problems. She said that people had to pay a karmic debt in order to reach heaven. And how do you pay? Do everything that she says. If you don't obey, you're going to the mental hospital. Or she'd have brutal operations done on you by her doctors. Like one guy wanted to leave, so she did a full frontal like lobe lobotomy on him. Like, yeah, there was some end of the world doomsday shit. She played on fear, nuclear war, Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis was going on around then, so it was not good. The cult was saved from the apocalypse, and they apparently had to repopulate the planet, so they needed children to create a master race because she was all about that white stuff. She stole 28 fucking babies, 28 kids. She changed their name to the family, like I say, in the 1970s. She was in her fucking 50s. By that time, she had so many doctors in her corner that it didn't matter. Anytime a woman was in her psych ward who was teenaged and pregnant, which was absolutely unheard of and not cool and frowned upon in Australia at the time, the minute she went to deliver her baby, Anne would have a pillow placed over her face. She'd deliver the baby and she'd never see the baby again. She'd have no recollection of the birth. She'd probably be drugged or something and to calm down. The end, baby gone, put up for adoption. Anne would get the baby. She stole 14 babies through the psych ward at the hospital. And if she had cult members who were pregnant, she either had them committed or she had them like promise their babies to her. So she 18 through the cult and 18 through the hospital, or 14 through the hospital, 14 through the cult, sorry. But like, so ridiculous. And all she had to have was like a signature with lawyers. So forging a lot of documents and stuff like that, not good. So she had her doctors deliver these babies and just steal the babies. Teen moms, unfit single moms, forced adoptions. She took advantage of the fact that, this kind of birth was happening. And doctors would just snap up the teenage pregnancies and they were sent away when they were pregnant. And they'd come back and have no babies and not be pregnant. It happened in Canada too, and it still does. And these lawyers forged so many records. Cult members handed their babies just to her. The kids never knew they weren't Anne and Bill's kids. These kids that she had in the family. They say 14 from the psych ward, 14 from cult members and stuff themselves. Mostly it's men getting the multiple women pregnant. And how in a decade, did anyone in her cult think that she could pop out 28 kids? Do the fucking math. Unless you're having multiples. How the fuck does anyone have 28 kids in 10 years? Come on. I don't know. She opened her own school in around that time, in the 70s, because these kids, they were getting to the age where they needed to go to school, and she didn't want them to go to regular school. She needed them to be under the radar. So she had connections in the industry of education. So she had weapons of math instruction. She just wanted to homeschool these kids. So the authorities, she flew under the radar. They said, fuck all, because she had her own school. She had enough money. So the children's life was ridiculous. Where the fuck are you going to keep 20 fucking 8 kids that you don't want anyone to know about, but you want to parade around like little angels when you have company. She bought a large property in the middle of nowhere, right in Australia, in the middle of it, like a tree-lined acreage called Optop. It was basically a prison, barbed wire fencing around it, like glorified fucking treehouse, dirt floors. She dyed all their hair platinum blonde, and it was painful. She put them in matching clothes. It looked like He-Man meets Village of the Dead meets the fucking like Von Traps. It was like ridiculous. Like, holy fuck. She just took a bowl and cut around it on these heads. 10 years. 28 kids. Like, can anyone do math? Bueller? Like, seriously, how the fuck is this happening? These are not happy and healthy children. These are not actually like Von Traps. These kids weren't allowed possessions, okay? So trigger warning, I'm going to give it to you now because this is fucking the worst thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like, I'm always done my coffee because I have to have a drink because like when I started reading about this, I was crying. I can't have a cookie because like I'll barf because it was terrible. So that's your trigger warning. She didn't want to get her hands dirty, so she had these women that she called the aunties. They were female cult members. A lot of them were RNs, and she'd have them homeschool the kids at Optop, live with them. And Anne never wanted to be there, like, and do anything physically herself. So the aunties were disciplining the kids, and some of them were their actual biological mothers, and the kids never knew. They followed a strict military sort of routine. 5 a.m., they'd get up, wash up, bed done. By 6:30 a.m., they have an hour of yoga. 7:30 a.m., they'd listen to Anne's sermons, meditation, worship of Anne, until 8:30. 3 hours of being up, 3.5 hours rather, and they're allowed to have breakfast, which is like a few pieces of raw fruit, and then schoolwork, chores, lunch, and dinner, which it was both the same thing. Small plate of steamed vegetables. She didn't want these kids gaining a lot of weight because she didn't want anyone to know that they were getting too much older, and if they did gain weight, they were deprived of food and rationed what they already like weren't getting. They were eating steamed vegetables and fruit. The end. Like, that's horrible. So there was no electricity, there was no running water, there was gas, like lights for like fire and light, no TV, no books, no radio, no anything. They were isolated, no personalities. These kids weren't allowed to have personalities. They slept in dormitories and this was normalized to them. Their punishments were ridiculous. They were beaten for speaking, messy handwriting, wearing odd socks, beaten like until they wet themselves. And then with weapons like canes, whips, belts, nails sticking out of wood. Wetting yourself was super frowned upon by Anne. She hated, they were not to become friends with each other, like despite being siblings. One boy was beating so badly because he was split up from other kids that they called him Zebra Stripes because he had marks from like abuse. Now her abuse went so far to like include babies. Because when kids wet the bed there, that was super frowned upon. They were dragged by like the ear into cold showers and beaten until they were like senseless because they wet the bed. This included babies because, you know, babies can totally control when they go to the washroom in diapers. So if they were found to be wet and wetting a diaper, they made the older children hold the babies. The aunties made the older children hold the babies in, I don't even know how to say this. Hold them in ice baths and just hold them there while the babies screamed and the aunties beat like babies. Like diaper, yeah. They hit them. So there was intense interrogation of these children. Breaking a rule of like who done it was really bad. Until they cracked. They all got beaten in front of each other and whipped in front of each other. And if anyone broke their silence, like and cried, they'd get whipped. Their hands were held over open flames. They had buckets of water like dipped in their heads, like they dipped them in their heads and say, okay, are you ready to talk yet? And they, no. Are you ready to talk? No. Are you ready to talk? And they just keep dunking them until they couldn't breathe. They controlled them with food. They were starving them with access, with locked cupboards and stuff. And they'd eat lavish meals in front of the kids. They weighed them daily. And like I say, they'd beat them if they got bigger. And they'd give them half the food. They ate lavish meals in front of them. And gave them nothing. There was one particular kid that the other kids knew kind of from reading science books, because that's all they were allowed to read, that she was malnourished and underweight. And they came to Anne and they said, she was malnutrition because she was like dragging herself around on the ground because she couldn't walk anymore and her stomach was distending. She had abdominal distension from malnutrition, which obviously often happens. And they said she was doing it for drama. So they cut all her food in half. So she ended up having seizures, and they said it was for sympathy. So kids as young as 8 and 9 years old were given LSD 2 times daily. It was to manipulate them, and it affected their development. It gave them like an ego death. At 14, they'd have the initiation ceremony, which included like the 8 hours of like super acid in a room where she came out as God. She'd always target the girls more than she would the boys. She'd target their changing bodies and say that they were like ugly when they were going through puberty, and they were not given female products when they got like their periods and things like that. She made them feel dirty about their bodies and their changing bodies. She accused them of being lesbians because they're always with each other. Then she criticized how like they walked in front of men and said that they did it to get male attention. Like she did this to girls as young as 5 years old. Imagine a 5-year-old walking a certain way to get male attention. Maybe to get like adult attention, just acting like a little pipsqueak. Oh my gosh, like, but the girls started self-harming themselves because they had no self-worth. So they started cutting themselves and having constant suicidal like ideation. So in the 1980s, the kids living in squalor for over a decade, like they got pissed and she got more rich. She got $50 million from the cult, brought all this money with her all around the world and bought properties all over the place. She was traveling, she was recruiting, she's parading the kids around like to new recruits, and she's only giving them affection, like I say, conditional love, when it's shown in front of guests and to portray like a happy family. Because even when they travel, she'd call, like her and Bill would travel, she'd call the camp and Op-Top and listen to the aunties punish the kids. She liked to hear them scream while being beaten. Like, she had something fucking psychologically wrong with her. And if you want to leave this call, like I say, you're going to be given LSD, you're going to be interrogated, and then with all the information she gets from you from the interrogation, she digs out your deepest, darkest secrets, she blackmails your ass. And then you can't do anything. So you're not going anywhere. You're not getting out. Motto, unseen, unknown, unheard. Now we're heading downhill for Anne. Like, this is where things start to go wrong. So a child in the area goes missing in Australia, in Melbourne, and it was blamed on the cult. So this put some unwanted attention on Anne, and this is not anything that was wanted or needed for her because she was already running under the radar. So the police came to Op-Top to her wellness check, but she'd gotten word, and the aunties went and hid all the kids in a wall that they called the hole. So it was like a very there's a hole drilled in a wall with like a curtain in front of it where they just put kids in between like drywall, and they had to be quiet because they were told police would hurt them and rape them and torture them and murder them. So they're terrified. So when the police showed up, the kids shut the hell up because they were in the hole. Again, this was normal. They were afraid of the police. Police wanted to kill them. And so media cameras and crews wanted to question Anne, and like multiple kids and stuff. Members started to leave and she couldn't stop them, and they started speaking to the media. Now, 2 of the kids who were 16 and 17, Sarah and Leanne, began to rebel. They were teenagers. They'd leave, they'd walk to houses, and they'd steal food and they'd feed the kids. And then the community sent cops again in 1987, and the kids were hidden again. And Anne's like 65 at this point, and she's fled to upstate New York. The aunties are still on orders. Like, they're doing whatever she says, whenever she calls in and barks down the pipe. The teens broke out this one more time and made friends with the quote-unquote normies, the regular kids in town. And the other kids find out. So Sarah, one of the girls in the cult who I talked about, did something unthinkable that you're not allowed to do with the cult. She brought an outsider in. And when Anne heard this, she kicked Sarah out of the cult. So fucking hallelujah for Sarah, because Leanne left too. And then they went to the police together in an act of bravery in 1987. August 14th, their day of freedom, at 7 a.m., cops raided Op-Top and saved the rest of the kids. Kids resisting the police like crazy because they were told that the police were bad. They arrested the aunties, huge stashes of LSD, money, plus the black book of all the people that were in the cult. The hospital was shut down. Then the doctors lost their licenses. Their reputations were ruined. Anne and Bill are still hiding out in New York. They're trying to do everything they can to evade stuff. So Cassandra was the one who weighed nothing, like the girl who weighed nothing that I told you about, who was malnutrition. She was 12 when they found her, and she weighed 30 kilograms at 12 years old. The rumor says that she looked like a 4 or 5 year old, and she had actually developed a syndrome called psychosocial short stature disorder. It's when you stop producing a growth hormone from having a really, really stressful environment. So they believe that that's what happened to her, because within the next year after rehabilitation and being with loving adults and being in a loving relationship, she grew 11 centimeters. That's unheard of in a year. All kids went to the rehab and social services. They kept all of them miraculously together. They were rehabilitated together. They were put in loving homes together. They turned their lives around, and they finally celebrated birthdays. They weren't allowed to do that because Anne and Bill never let them know they had identities because they fucked up all the birth certificates. They learned that Anne and Bill were not even their parents. Now, what happens to these two fucking assholes? Moving around a lot, police had a hard time building a case. The aunties denied everything, even though the kids were talking. Other members denied it all to the cult members. The police couldn't find enough physical evidence, nothing physical. Too late for drug testing, and as well in Australia, there's something called a statute of limitations. We don't have it like that in Canada, and it was gone. There's no statute of limitations on abuse in Canada, which is amazing. Police tried to build this case for over 5 years, and in 1993, they made a phone call, and we were told the whereabouts of Anne. She slipped up, and the FBI got her. She went to prison. Case goes to trial. The prosecution can only make one charge on this bitch stick, though. You know what it is? Conspiracy to defraud, because she had 3 forged birth certificates that they found. Bill gets the same. They both plead guilty. What do they get? And this made my blood fucking explode. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? They both got slapped with a $5,000 fine and they could walk the fuck away. Now, to people like this, they're worth $50 million. $5,000 is nothing. Nothing. What did you learn from all this? Nothing. After all that, she walked away a free fucking monster lady. Members of this cult, lived and worked in the criminal justice system, may I say. So there was zero justice for these kids. She continued the cult. She even gave an interview, and it's nuts. She makes 0 cents saying that the kids were fucking paid to make this shit up. I don't know from where. 2004, she developed dementia, and she ended up in care. She died in 2019 at 98 years evil. A fucking evil old queen. No remorse, no apology, no acknowledgement. She left all her money to cult members who still go today. Her biological daughter, Judy, she changed her name and ran away. The family still runs today, to this day, and all the members still live in Melbourne in a little community that's not an intentional town, but it's there. Most of the kids turned their lives around. A few of the children actually took their own lives because it was so fucking traumatic not to have your own identity and grow up like that. And then Sarah actually became a doctor. She traveled to India and started helping people in the streets and became a doctor without borders. She started becoming an advocate for people who had survived cults and things like that. And then she sadly got addicted to drugs, and she became an addict really bad. And she had her leg amputated, and she suffered complications from that. And sadly, she died of heart failure at the age of 46. So really young, and a lot of it, they said it probably had to do with the stuff that happened to her in the cult and the traumatic episodes that she suffered. Now, doomsday cults are obsessed with this kind of stuff. There's a queen of Canada right now who's, it's weird. There's a town called Rebound in Saskatchewan. You gotta check out the queen of Canada. Apparently it's something to see. I don't know. It's nuts. Check out the Queen of Canada. You'll see what I mean. I'm not going to tell you about it right now, but check out these documentaries if you can. I'm sure you'll find your way into whatever cult. Just don't go into one. Don't be in a cult. Next time you see me, every predator you know or you don't know is going under the fucking pedophile bus, because I'm on a very trigger happy episode, and I'm in a very trigger happy, I'm in a very truthful mood. I don't care if it gets me kicked off the fucking planet. But if I can talk about anything and be, like I say, a cautionary tale for anybody, I will be. And I'm going to let you know about sexual assault, grooming, cautionary tales for all people, like I say, not just girls in the music industry, everybody in the anything industry, all humans in all walks of life. You know where I'm at, and you know where to find me. I'm just March breaking it. I'll be on Instagram at 21st Century Rocker Mom. If you want to rock your body and your hair and rock your body right, you can get me at the Rockaholic Grooming Company. You can find me on TikTok at 21st Century Rocker Mom. You can find me anywhere you stream at 21st Century Rocker Mom Podcast. You can find me on YouTube at Tanya Candler Channel. I'm not much on like Twitter now, or X or whatever you call it, but I got my X back, and it's just the Tanya Candler. It's not at Tanya Candler anymore. That one's old. I had to get a new one, so it's just the Tanya Candler. You can find me there. I'll probably put in my links, dinks, spinks, winks, pinks. I love it. I'm going to winks at you and say bye to another episode of 21st Century Rocker Mom Podcast. I will see you next time when we throw all the sickos under the fucking bus. Let's go! Have a wonderful March break, and I will see you when I get back. Peace to ya.